Okay, I'm here with Kevin Young, former world record holder,
Yes.
Olympic champion, 400 metre hurdles. We're here at the Karsten Warholm Mondo Duplantis 100 metre sprint showdown, which I think you're very much looking forward to. But why did we not have things like this back in your day, back in the late 80s, early 90s?
I think it would have been too many hands on this particular project, and then obviously I think that whatever particular sponsor that would be supporting this would probably go in two different directions when it comes to trying to promote this to a particular audience. I'm sure demographics would have been the case. You got a beverage company as well. Then you have an athletics apparel company. Sometimes they wouldn't let the demographic cross.
Yeah.
And so I think that would probably been the biggest problem, because they would want us, we need somebody in a crowd. Because typically when you think of athletics, you don't necessarily think of Red Bull because it's not a sports performing drink.
Yeah.
However, Red Bull is a marketing company, and they do a great job marketing things that are outside of the box. And this is definitely one thing that track and field needs, because track and field religiously do not do things outside of the box. They're sticklers of their tradition and things which they do, which some things are great, some things are fine, but I think a lot of times when it comes to having ideas, they have a tendency.
You think the sport needs this kind of thing?
They've always needed it.
Yeah.
I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think they're going to hopefully
have more things like this.
They're going to have more things like this. I think we've started with the street races.
Yeah.
And then of course, but however, when you have athletes from different disciplines participating in an event, a mutual event that they're going to they can highlight, I think that's going to get a lot of people just generally interested in the sport itself.
Yeah. I think you've said that if you were to have a dream race in a situation like this back in your peak years, you would have quite liked to have raced Mike Powell, the long jumper. But surely Sergey Bubka would have been the logical clash over 100 meters.
Yeah.
That would have been almost identical to this.
Be honest with you, I would definitely have to pick a difference that covers more than 100 meters.
Yeah, you wouldn't have enjoyed 100.
Not at all. It'll take me about 60 meters just to get out of the blocks.
Yeah.
But it's amazing though. I just love the fact that those two guys, because I've watched them. I mean, we've watched them, but I've specifically watched these individuals over these past, I would say, 6 or 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
Watching their growth. Matriculation in the event, and I will not be surprised if either one of them runs under 10.4 or close to it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm predicting a 10.4 race is not out of the realm of possibility, and I think everybody's going to be appreciative of what the result's going to be anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just curious who's going to have the largest roar prior to settling into
before the
blocks.
start.
Yeah.
Now you live in Zurich as well, or just outside Zurich?
Yeah, about 8 kilometers outside of Zurich.
A few miles out, or few kilometers outside of Zurich. How did you end up here, and what have you done since you hung up your spikes, so to speak?
Spikes, I finished grad school. I started off in Swansea back in 2019. So Swansea University down there.
Okay.
Wales.
In South Wales.
Yeah, South Wales. And then I matriculated to KU Leuven in Leuven, Brussels. No, excuse me, Leuven, Belgium. They're going to give me, and I got a degree in sports ethics and integrity. And so I ended up getting here because our classes went from a physical course right after COVID to an online course.
Yeah.
And it being an online course, it stopped my traveling to finish up in Germany at the University of Mainz, and I ended up reconnecting with an old friend. And staying, getting married and staying. So
okay.
That was the catch.
Now you've as you mentioned a moment ago, you've obviously watched Karsten Warholm's development and been impressed with that. And I know you were speaking earlier, saying how you're staggered how these guys can get to the first hurdle half a second or so quicker than you used to.
Exactly.
What's your overall view of the way that the event has progressed in recent years?
I think what has happened, what I love the fact is that they're not as fearful, or they don't hold back as much as we did. We're more calculated.
Yeah.
And now I think the way that their coaches are showing them, you can actually go out there and run hard.
Okay.
For the first half of the race. I will still be a little hesitant going out as fast as these guys are going, because they're actually, some athletes, I can't say all of them, are paying the price for it on the other side of the track.
Yeah.
So I say mutually, they're figuring. One thing about the hurdle race is always, and I find this out, it's a developing event. So you can be as fast as you possibly can be, but if you don't execute accordingly, and have the physical fitness, the physiology as your background, as your foundation, you'll pay for it on the other side of the track.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is to watch the athletes themselves over the years figure out their best race. I've watched it in Karsten. I've definitely seen it in Rai Benjamin over the years. I'm watching Santos. Now he's one of the curious ones, because just watching his step pattern, he's going 12 steps and he's switching over, going to 13.
Yeah.
Rai is running up on the hurdle, and I'm speaking like, say, the first 5-6 hurdles. Rai is actually running up on the hurdles 2, 3, 4, 5, which seemingly is a 12 step, but he's kind of relaxing and holding himself back.
Yeah.
And has learned over the years to emphasize coming home with the strength. But the interesting thing about it is, based upon the athlete's fitness, whether or not they go 12 strides, 13 strides, or 15 strides in their fitness, that pretty much seems to be the critical factor when it comes to athletes finishing strong and racing strong. Because even with Karsten going, stepping up, going 15, say the last 2 hurdles 9 and 10, he's actually able to keep the foot speed there. And then once you clear that 10th hurdle, it's just a foot race. You can pull guys off at that point in the race. But figuring out when you're going to do that, positioning that, it's a lot of times still up in the air, because it just takes, if you clip a hurdle, it'll take you out your game plan, your race, if that simple thing happens. So the key thing I would say is your rhythm being there, you're clearing the barriers, and you actually trust your fitness to finish strong, and don't really get agitated when somebody kind of runs up on you. Because I think that's what a lot of hurdlers have been faltering over the years, because Warholm has been running past individuals and breaking catching the stagger on them, and he's an individual typically out in lane 7 on out. And for athletes that are on the inside, someone goes out as fast, it kind of throws them off. Like, am I ever going to be able to catch this guy? And they have a typical thing to change their own tactics and try to go after him at a portion of the race where they typically wouldn't do it. You know? And like what Leif was saying, it's always better to run hard and peter out and die out, as opposed to have that energy locked in and then you exert it at the end of the race. For a runner, that's typically the hardest thing to figure out. I think they've actually laid this groundwork over a period of years and really got it down to a pat.
What's your view on the women's 400 meter hurdles lately? Because that's moved on a huge amount as well from the days of Sally Gunnell
and Sandra Farmer, Patrick, and all those individuals. I was literally watching the progressions of the women's race 2 nights ago, watching it go from it literally was at one point at 52.94, and for Sydney to run 50:37, 34. I mean, she literally taken. There's only been like 6 or 7 seconds taken off the race over the last 40 years, which is incredible. But not just, watching Femke race. But what I love about the fact that,
because you're based in Europe, and you'll know that Femke's a big star here.
She's a big star here, and I love the fact that both places have these athletes. Because for years, think about it, in the U.S., we just had Edwin. Edwin was the legend. He was the Mount Rushmore, we would call it. But I've always respected Harold Schmidt and all the other. In the UK, we had Chris Akabusi. France, Claire Stein, those guys. But to have that, I think what happens is you have all the youngsters that are in these locations to say, I can do it. I can. That's the measuring stick. I think for Europe, that's amazing. Even with the intermediates. With Karsten running and racing and running as fast as he is, everybody knows they have to step their game up, and that's a good feeling.
There's been some talk at World Athletics. They're talking about changing the height of the hurdles, making them a bit higher. Have you heard that? Do you have a view on this? I know they're experimenting with lots of events.
I was literally in Freeport on Sunday at the track lab that they had there.
Okay.
And I was just a bit I was a bit confused because of, I guess they were just setting things up, but they were showing us the long jump. that takes away from the strategy of the long jump.
The skill of hitting the board.
Right. And they did that, and they had another event in which they didn't do any of the mechanisms on the starting blocks.
Yeah.
I think we should go to the old measuring. I think the whole field should get charged 1 false start.
Yeah.
And anybody after that gets kicked out.
Yeah.
I'm still out of. I'm not sure of understanding the reaction time thing. For them setting a bar for that the human.
I take it you're a bit old school then. You like the old, the traditional.
Yeah, certain things I think are good for the event.
Yeah.
I don't think they should mess with the long jump at all.
No.
I mean, even for the fact that even when they go to finals and they take the top 3 athletes in the league, and
you're not really a fan of that.
Yeah, nah, I haven't.
No.
I'm not a fan of that. I think the results should count in the first 6 jumps.
Yeah, but something like the sprint here with Karsten Warholm and Mondo Duplantis, that's great, isn't it? It's a great innovation.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
In our sport, it's a no-brainer because you would think that first and foremost, athletes themselves, we're not in these boxes. Although we compete specifically in these events, we're not in these boxes. You got pole vaulters are doing plyometrics and they're jumping over hurdles all the time.
Yeah.
We're always sprinting. We're always running the short distances as well as picking up the longer distances. So I think it's just a good sense of them being good marketers, Red Bull and as well as Puma.
Yeah.
I think it's more. Think about this. Shoe companies do a lot of collaborations with these outside forces. I think they should do more collaborations within the sport.
Within the sport.
Yeah. And I think this is hats off to Red Bull and Puma for doing that.
Last question from me. If you had to do another event back in the 90s instead of 400-meter hurdles, would you have? Is there any event you would have liked to have had a go at, or do you think you might have been pretty good at it?
I wanted to be a high hurdler. I started off as a high hurdler.
Oh, okay. The
only reason why I went to the intermediates because it gave me a better opportunity of being on UCLA's team as a walk-on.
All right.
The guys who were on scholarship,
yeah,
who were short hurdlers, they didn't want to run intermediates. I was like, well, this is my wiggle room.
Okay.
So I hooked up with John Smith at the time.
So that's how you ended up in the event.
That's how I ended up in the event. And then, who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Excellent. Well, thanks very much. Thanks very much for your time. Cheers. Yeah, no, you said something interesting up there before about the athletes from back in the 80s, 90s, more grumpy.
Yeah. Yes. So, I can kind of narrow that down.
Certainly Mondo and Karsten. I mean, they're competitive. They're really competitive, but they're really friendly as well. But that wasn't really a thing.
These guys guys off the track really just didn't the scrimmage.
Yeah.
They didn't gel with each other.
No.
And if from an outsider watching everything go on, I was like, Carl and Lippert, they don't really.
No.
They go back and forth.
They talk now, though. They talk. Yeah, exactly. I know because they bumped into each other at the UK champs and Olympic trials about 3 months ago. Carl was there in Manchester, England.
Okay.
Because he coaches a young sprinter called Louis Hinchliffe.
Oh yeah, the young kid out of Houston.
Yeah, from Houston. So he travelled over to and Limpford was there as well. And I heard that they bumped into each other, said hello, and they're fine now, you know. But back in the day, they would be.
They would, you see the eyes roll.
Can I get you for a couple of questions? Awesome.
Thanks very much for your time anyway.
Likewise.
Cheers. Nice to meet you.